does this go? How's this work? This is a really, really big fan. This is my number one fan right here. Hey there, welcome back to the Magic and the Music. I'm Jen. Today, I am going to be talking to you about some of my favorite strategies for staying cool in summer at Disney World. We go to Disney World every summer, and especially because we don't live in the same region as Disney World. We live in the Pacific Northwest, not in the Southeast. And so I think it's really important that you understand, especially when you come from different areas, what you're going to be dealing with when it comes to your visit to Disney World in the summer. Hey, if you're enjoying the videos on our channel, you can also support us by liking this video, sharing this video, commenting on this video on your favorite strategies to stay cool. Also, you can visit us over at Patreon or our shop at themagicandthemusic.com. So go check it out, help us out, and we'll keep bringing you videos. Let's talk about what you need to know to have a comfortable trip in the hot months of the summer. We do not shy away from traveling in the summer. I know a lot of people will say never, they'll never do it. The time when we have the longest uninterrupted break of time is always the summer. So we're going to show you how to make it as comfortable as possible. My very first tip for staying cool at Disney World in the summer and handling the heat is to choose indoor cues at the hottest parts of the day. So if you think this through, it's all hot. Okay, let's face it. It's like tropical, it's hot. And the humidity is kind of stifling. It's a little bit surprising if you aren't from a humid climate, if you're used to like a dry heat. You might be shocking when you arrive at Disney in the summer, when you step off that plane, as we do. It's always like, wow, it feels like you're in the bathroom and someone just took a shower in the bathroom next to you and you're kind of instantly sweating. That's what it feels like. You have to be prepared for that in the summertime. So the hottest parts of the day are always going to be 1 or 2 p.m. all the way through maybe 5 or 6 p.m. So I would say like 3 to 5 kind of range. We don't really want to be outside for any extended stretch of time at that point in the day. So make sure that you have planned activities like indoor cues. Like I said, a lot of things have indoor lines, especially if it's something really kind of long. That might be a good time to do an indoor cue. An example of what not to do would be to say, get in an outdoor cue like Slinky Dog Dash at Hollywood Studios. That to me is like the worst queue to be in when it's hot. Even though they've covered some of the areas, to me, it's just so hot and it's always long. It's always like an hour plus. So I would avoid things like that. Choose the things that are going to have indoor air conditioned queues. And it's really a lot of things. You'll notice a big difference between Disney World and Disneyland when it comes to the queuing. Disneyland, the climate is not quite so harsh. It can be hot, but it's much drier heat. And so they tend to have a lot more outdoor queues, whereas at Disney World, those same attractions often have an indoor queue just because you want to be in the AC. And I think you should look for those for sure. Barnstormer. Oh my gosh, don't get in line for Barnstormer when it's really hot. Oh, don't do that. Things that are good indoor queues now, like Dumbo in Fantasyland has a great indoor playground, air conditioning. So you can find stuff. I avoid Tomorrowland, Speedway, what it used to be Autopia, the car one. I don't do that one. Space Mountain's a nice indoor queue that's air conditioned. There are just tons of options. Okay, our second tip is, and this is a big one for us, is to take an afternoon break at possible. This is probably the number one reason that we are DVC members, because we want to stay at deluxe resorts that are really near to the theme parks. And when you are at those resorts, you have the opportunity to easily leave the parks. Many of them are within walking distance or just a monorail ride or a Skyliner ride away from the theme parks. So we really like to get out of the theme parks. I know it sounds counterintuitive because you're thinking, we spent all this money to be in this theme park, but if you're going to enjoy your trip more by going and getting off your feet and taking a pool break or taking a nap, sometimes we would even take a nap, especially when our children were younger. We would often go in the theme parks, rope drop. So that means you're in the park at least 30 minutes before it opens and you get in there the earliest possible, because that's the coolest part of the day. Still not cool. It's still warm in the summer. And you get in there, do as much as you can. And then once you hit about 1 or 2 p.m., we usually get out. We usually leave, go back to the resort, either take a nap or we'll often have lunch and take a nap, sometimes even swim. But sometimes it's so hot outside, we don't even really want to swim. That is huge. I cannot overstate that enough, how important it is to get yourself out of the heat and really let your body temperature cool down. Just let your feet rest, come in rejuvenated and ready to go. And we usually will head back into the theme parks like 5 or 6 p.m. And then often the parks tend to be open, fairly late in the evening, especially Magic Kingdom, sometimes Epcot. And so then you can push through those evening hours and they're just a lot more comfortable. My next tip is to book afternoon lunches, late afternoon lunches, if you have the opportunity. This is a great option if you are someone who doesn't have the option of leaving the theme park in the middle of the day. You might actually find that just booking a nice long leisurely lunch, often, like a dining reservation, is a great option as well. One tip was one time I did Crystal Palace, which is a character meal, and I booked it at it was after 2:00, and it was not a time when most people would eat lunch, and they had a break in their day between the lunch times and the dinner times. And you might want to look at this because the restaurants might have a little window where they're actually closed in between, and Crystal Palace had that. And so we went in, my best friend and I did this meal. We went in and it was full when we came in, and by the time we left, and this was like 2:30, 3:00, by the time we left, the restaurant was in this break period in the middle, and there were not very many people there. And so the characters just kept coming around and interacting with us and visiting, and the servers were just hanging out and chatting. It was really, really easy and really nice. And we weren't there for like an excessively long period of time, but we just kind of caught one of the last few reservations. So that's a little tip, is to look for those last seatings, maybe for the lunch time. That might give you a chance to just kind of hang out and be in the air conditioning. Or you could just book like a 1:00 and, kind of have a slow leisurely lunch too. You also could do this at a quick service. So if you were going to go dine somewhere that had an indoor seating, definitely you want to look for indoor seating if you can choose that. That's going to be most comfortable for you. And so some places that you can find cool indoor seating in Magic Kingdom: Cosmic Rays, not my favorite food, but air-conditioned indoors. Pecos Bills has a lot of seating inside, and that's cool. Also, Columbia Harbor House has a extensive seating area. If you see it full downstairs, don't worry, just go up the stairs, and there's a lot more seating up there. That's a great place to cool off in Magic Kingdom. Over at Epcot, you've got the Connections Cafe. That's a large area with a lot of seating, and you can definitely cool off in there. And there are some different spots around Epcot. Basically, you could go anywhere in the land. There's a big kind of food court, Sunshine Seasons food court in there, and that's a great space to sit down and cool off. And if you're a DVC member, you've got the Epcot Lounge. That's a great place. And that's in the Imagination Pavilion. You can cool off there. If you're in the World Showcase, there aren't really as many indoor air-conditioned quick service options. Les Halles, Boulangerie, and Patisserie, there's actually a little seating area in there, but it's pretty small. Sometimes you have to really wait to get a spot to sit, or they're have little counters you can kind of stand at. But that's a nice spot. And also, of course, the Mexico Pavilion is indoors. So that's another spot where you can kind of hang out and be out of the heat. So definitely look for those opportunities to cool off and just get yourself out of the heat and maybe sit down. Ideally, sit down. Future World has more of those options for you. Hollywood Studios, options for sitting down. Indoors, you have ABC Commissary and you have Backlot Express. Those are inside and cool. So I would definitely check those out. Those will be good options. You also have Docking Bay 7, but it's a lot smaller indoor area. And sometimes it can be harder to find a table in there. You have a huge area over on Sunset Boulevard that has quick service. And it does have covered areas. So that's a good option. But it's going to be a little hotter because it's not indoors. In Animal Kingdom, your options for sitting in the AC are going to be Restaurantosaurus. That has pretty extensive seating. And then also, my favorite quick service is Satuli Canteen. That one also has a large indoor air-conditioned area to eat. Honorable mention does go to Flame Tree Barbecue. It doesn't have indoor seating, but it has all these levels that go down towards the water. If you want to stay cooler, go all the way down toward the water, and then when you're a little closer to the water, you get a little more breeze, and that could be a little more comfortable. So, your mileage may vary with that one, but we do like to eat there too, even in the summer. All right, let's get down to the stuff. What's the stuff that you're going to need that's different for a summer Disney trip? And honestly, this could probably work for spring and fall because Florida is pretty hot. If you're not from a hot climate, get ready because it's intense. It's some intense heat and humidity. Really, the humidity is kind of what gets you. So things that we like to bring on our trips: cooling towels. I'm a big, big believer in cooling towels for two different reasons. One is the obvious one, keeps you cooler. So you have these towels you can buy. The Disney ones are actually very good. They have pink and blue ones with Mickeys on them. I highly recommend them. But you can also buy these on Amazon and they're a lot cheaper. So I will have a link in the description below, and it's a link to my Amazon storefront, meaning that I have kind of a curated collection of different items that I like to use and I recommend and I have experience with. So if you want to check that out, you can find a whole bunch of different things that will help you on your next Disney trip. And I do have products like the cooling towels and the neck fan that I'm about to discuss in there. So please check that out. If you use that link, that does get us a little bit of a commission. So whether you buy those items or anything else on Amazon, if you take our link over there, that does help out our channel. So we really appreciate that. So the way that I use cooling towels is I prefer to, you take it and you want to you can go to a drinking fountain or whatever, sink, anything, bathroom sink, whatever. You're not going to find a lot of cool water, just so you know. If you go and, the pipes are warm, so the water is going to come out of it relatively warm, unless you are at a specific drinking fountain that's chilled. But that's usually not the case. It's usually going to be warmer water. So you're going to take your cooling towel, and I would probably do this even before you leave your resort if you're staying on property. You're going to get it all wet, and then you're going to kind of wring out the water, and usually you're supposed to kind of pull on them to kind of get some of the evaporation going. You kind of tug on the towel and stretch it a little bit. That can kind of help. And then I take the cooling towel and I put it over my shoulders and I just kind of let it hang here. And yes, it's going to soak in and get your shirt wet and all that. And it actually feels really good. So you're going to want that when it's really, really hot. The other thing is I will often take the cooling towel and I'll spread it down over my shoulders. And I found that if I'm wearing a tank top or something kind of strappy, it actually prevents me from getting a sunburn on my shoulders and the back of my neck and the backs of my arms. So it kind of has a twofold purpose for me. That really, really helps. I mean, you can put it over your head. You can tie it like a headband. You can do whatever you want. But I find just laying it over my shoulders and kind of this way, like a little bit of a shawl, is the most comfortable for me and keeps me the coolest in the theme parks. And you will need to wet it. It will dry pretty quickly. One little tip is if you're on a ride, sometimes the cooling towel can fly off, on a roller coaster or something. So usually what I'll do is I'll take my cooling towel off and then I'll fold it in half and then I'll take it like I have a shoulder bag and I'll kind of loop it around the shoulder bag and pull it through. So then it's attached to me so it can't fall off of me if I'm on something. My husband is a big fan of neck fans. He's a big fan of the fans. And he actually had a video on our channel a couple years ago reviewing his favorite neck fan. And there are a lot more neck fans available now. So again, check out our Amazon link to find some different neck fan options. But he loves the neck fan. Randall is all about the neck fan and he calls it his personal swamp cooler. He'll do the cooling towel and then he'll put his neck fan on and it's pointed right at his face and it's awesome. Now, as a person with long hair, I'm not quite as into the neck fan because I've never gotten my hair stuck, but I worry that I'm going to get my hair stuck in it. My daughter has gotten her hair kind of tangled and it was fine. It wasn't a disaster, but we were like, ooh, we better be careful. So if you have short hair, you might really love the neck fan, or if you keep your hair up out of the way all the time, you might really love it. But like I said, swamp cooler option is great. My husband loves it. It's ridiculous looking and embarrassing and he's happy. So that's fine. One tip he mentioned, remember to turn off your neck fan when you go into the bathroom, because one time he didn't and he stepped into the bathroom stalls, which, it's a fragrant environment and all of these smells were being wafted right up into his face. And so you'll definitely want to turn off your neck fan when you walk into a bathroom. Another thing that is an absolute must at Disney World in the summer is, for me, umbrellas. Now, some people are really, really into ponchos. I'm not as into ponchos because it's very hot. It's raining and it's hot. This is a tropical climate. It's going to rain. You need to be prepared for getting wet, potentially being stuck in a quick rain shower. It's still warm. You're not going to get cold, but I really like the umbrella. Again, twofold, because not only does it keep me dry if it rains, it also can keep you probably about 10 degrees cooler when it's really, really hot and sunny. So if you get stuck in a situation waiting for a bus or something, and you're like just in a hot place, or you're in a queue area where there's no umbrella, or you're, whatever, I'll pull out my umbrella. And I do have a recommendation for umbrellas. I have some linked on our Amazon list. I like the ones that have the reflective silver on the outside, because I think that does help keep the temperature down. I usually just take like a Disney Parks shopping bag. When the umbrella gets wet and you close it down, I'll just drop it into that shopping bag, and I'll kind of keep that. And then if we go on a ride or something, we'll roll that up and just put it into our backpack. So that way we don't get our backpacks wet. And we often, with a family of 4, we'll often have 2 small folding umbrellas. And I think for me, it's an absolute must. If you're from other regions of the country, like here in the Pacific Northwest, we do a lot of Gore-Tex and waterproof rain gear and things like that. It's going to be very, very hot if you rely on those things in this tropical climate. So I would say umbrella or poncho or both, just be ready. Obviously, you're also going to be wanting sunscreen, and you're going to want to have sunglasses because it can be blindingly bright. And I always like to bring an extra pair of sunglasses in my suitcase in case mine gets squashed or broken or something happens, because I don't want to have to shop for sunglasses on vacation, because they're probably going to be more expensive or not quite what I want. So I make sure and bring an extra pair of those. And sunscreen is really important. The sun is brutal in Florida, and you could get a horrible sunburn that could really ruin your vacation. So do be mindful of getting sunscreen on each day. My next tip is to be completely prepared for the weather. And mainly in the summer, what I mean, in addition to the heat and humidity, it will rain on your trip in the summer. It may not rain every single day, but it rains a lot of days in the summer. So, when we go on like a week plus trip, we will encounter multiple days of rain. This is not uncommon. I have family in Florida. When we would go to visit them, there was almost always like a late afternoon or early evening thunderstorm, and it doesn't always last that long. In fact, often it's fairly short, but in that amount of time, you can get so incredibly drenched. I was recently watching a vlogger who was taking an Alaska cruise out of Seattle, and we live in Washington, and they were like, I was prepared for all this rain. And I just kind of wanted to tell them, it actually rains less here in Washington than it does in Florida. It's just that you get yours in Florida like in more concentrated windows of time, whereas for us, it can sprinkle all day long. But in Florida, you might get like that same precip, but you get it in like 30 minutes or something. So, we talk about Florida rain. Like if it rains super hard here, which is really rare, we're like, oh, it's Florida rain. But our rain is cold. It's cold like that. And this is tropical, so be prepared for that tropical kind of climate. Be prepared for hard, intense rain, big wet rain, like where if you run across a pathway to another area, you'll be just soaked head to toe. Where in a lot of other regions here, for example, at home, you can, run from the store out to your car and not be necessarily soaked head to toe. In a Florida downpour, you will be. And so it's kind of like either on or off, and you can see the rain. Sometimes I have a memory of being in the World Showcase, and you could see on the lagoon, like the rain, you could just see the wall of water, and it's just coming at you, and you're like, okay, get inside. And then it's not raining, and then boom, it's raining. So you have to be prepared for that. That's really different from where a lot of us live. Okay, my next tip for traveling to Disney World in the summer: if you have a trip that is more than just a couple of days, I would definitely pack 2 pairs of athletic shoes. So I'll take running shoes to the parks. And I know it seems like, that's a lot of space in the suitcase to take up. I know, but I always have 2 or at least 2 pair of really, really comfortable shoes that you don't mind wearing, because if one gets completely soaked, athletic shoes, anything that's not sandals, it may not dry out overnight. In fact, it probably won't if you don't have access to a dryer to dry your shoes. So be prepared for that. Like, I know, again, a lot of us who come from less humid climates, we might say, oh, it's no problem. I'll put my shoes on the balcony overnight. And then in the morning, they'll be dry. It's so humid there. Stuff doesn't dry like that. So not in the summer in Florida. So I actually bring one pair of shoes that's kind of my most comfortable pair, and then I'll bring like my backup pair, or I'll bring a pair of like kind of sporty sandals like Tevas or something like that I know I can swap into if I get a pair of shoes soaked. And I do the same for everyone in my family. I make sure that there's a backup pair of extremely comfortable shoes if one of my pairs of shoes has not dried out, because you don't want to be walking around in wet shoes. You will give yourself blisters and you will ruin your trip. My next tip is to plan to watch indoor shows in the afternoon. So things like Festival of the Lion King, Finding Nemo the musical, the Frozen sing-along, events like that. Those are perfect things for you to do in the afternoon when it is really hot and you got to get yourself out of the heat. So that's a great thing. I would not do those things first thing in the morning, and I wouldn't do those late at night. I would do those when, and usually those don't run late at night, but you could do those first thing in the morning. I wouldn't. Go do the things that are outdoors when it's a little bit cooler. And then when it gets just oppressively hot, get yourself indoors to those shows, and you'll get off your feet and you'll thank yourself. Even some of the outdoor things like Indiana Jones, Epic Stunt Spectacular, the Safari at Animal Kingdom, some of those things can still be really great because they have like fans and stuff and you're out of the sun. So that would be like a secondary choice, but the best thing would be air conditioning and indoors. Okay, my next tip is around water. You are going to need to hydrate, and you're probably going to be sweating more than usual, and you're going to need to drink more water than you would in a normal day. So be prepared for that. Monitor that for everybody in your party. You don't have to go crazy. There is this kind of like hydration craze where everyone is like, you have to drink this 5 gallons of water a day. It's not that. Listen to your body, but monitor younger children or older folks or people who maybe can't monitor it quite as well for themselves. Monitor it, listen to your body, and make sure you stay hydrated. Just use common sense. It's pretty simple. I'm a big fan of taking water bottles. I like to take double-walled metal water bottles, and my favorite are these simple modern ones because they have a little top that you can flip down and it seals it, and it doesn't usually leak in a bag or whatever, but then you can flip it open and it has a straw so you can easily drink out of it I don't like having to lift up the water bottle and open and close it, the whole thing. So again, that's linked in our Amazon shop online. So you can find those, and I'm a big advocate of that. Yeah, the metal water bottles are heavy, but for me, it's worth it because I fill mine up with ice and then water, and that ice will last me most of the day. Sometimes at the end of the day, there's still ice in that water bottle, and nothing feels better than on a hot, humid day at Disney than taking out my water bottle and taking a drink of ice cold water. Feels fantastic. So to me, that's worth carrying around the metal water bottle in my backpack. I will do it. It is worth it. Also remember, you do not have to pay for water at Disney. You can always ask for a cup of ice water at any quick service food location. So any of the walk-up type food locations, they will give you that for free. And yes, you can ask for as many as you want. If you need, usually it takes 2 of them to fill up my water bottle. Ask for 2 or 4 or 6. They'll give it to you. It's free. Usually I just grab those whenever I'm picking up a quick snack or ordering food, and just kind of refill all those water bottles, get the ice in there, and you're good to go. Yes, there are some water bottle filling stations. They put some into Galaxy's Edge, and there's one in the queue for Flight of Passage, but there aren't that many of them. So definitely you're going to probably want to lean on the quick service ice water option. My next tip for handling Disney World in the summer is to be very, very careful about your resort choice, your hotel choice. So we like to stay on property, so I can really only comment on staying on property. But when we choose one on property, we always choose one with interior hallways in the summer. So for DVC members, and a lot of our viewers are DVC members, that would be Animal Kingdom Lodge, Riviera, Bay Lake Tower, Wilderness Lodge, and Boulder Ridge. So that reduces the amount of walking that you have to do outdoors. And I don't even care if it's a long walk. If that walk is in air conditioning, that's fine for me. But if I have to make a long walk in either the heat after a long park day and I'm exhausted, or worse yet, in a downpour in a Florida storm, that is miserable. So we had a trip that we took a few years ago where we stayed at Saratoga Springs, and it was a wonderful resort. I really enjoyed the resort, but we did not have a rental car. We have to fly, and we stayed, it was like 2 buildings over from where the bus stop was. If you're not aware, most of the moderate resorts at Disney World and DVC resorts, Old Key West and Saratoga Springs, they have this sort of satellite bus station situation where you have like the central main area with the food, but then the buildings are spread out, kind of like apartment buildings, right? Like a giant apartment complex. And then you have this loop of the buses go around, and then they have numerous stops that ultimately come to that central one. And then they go off to the parks or wherever. If you don't get a room near one of those bus stops, this can be really inconvenient. When we were at Saratoga Springs, we requested a room that was near to transportation, but you don't always get your requests. And we had to walk 2 buildings over. Again, if it had been December, probably would have been no problem. It would have been very comfortable. But we got caught in a downpour and just, we were already coming back from the parks and our day was almost over and we were exhausted. And that last little walk, we got stuck in an absolute downpour. And, it's like, ugh, why are we doing this? This is not fun. So we then and there kind of resolved that we are only going to stay at those resorts when we have a car. So if you drive, this may be a non-issue because you might drive to the parks and you can pull your car right up to where your room is, and that might be better for you. We are going to have a rental car next time, and we are going to stay one night at Saratoga Springs, so we'll get a room tour of that for you. But we are only going to stay there when we have a car in the future. So think really carefully about the logistics of your resort and how you're going to get to and from those places, especially if you use a wheelchair or an ECV or you have kids sleeping in a stroller. Think about how you're going to get from place to place in the heat and in Florida storm, because you're going to experience Florida storms on your trip if you go in the summer. Our next tip for visiting Disney World in the summer is to really manage your time carefully and around temperature and crowds. So we try to come to the parks early, make sure that you get in there at rope drop, which means being there 30 plus minutes ahead of time, maybe even an hour ahead of time, and really maximize the first couple hours of park operations. That's when you can get a lot of stuff done. Prioritize things that are outdoors if you can, or things that have really long queues. Looking at you, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, that is a long queue and it's outside. So you may want to hit that one right in the beginning of your day. Same thing like Slinky Dog Dash, things like that, where it can get really, really hot in that queue line. So we recommend taking a break, like we said before, in the hottest part of the day. And we also recommend using the evening time. Maximize your time in the park in the evenings because it's going to be less crowded and it's going to be a little bit cooler after the sun sets in the evening. So really take advantage of those evening hours. We call them magic hours. I know Disney calls them magic hours too, but we call them magic because the crowd levels go down and everything is just more chill and the lights come up and it's just magical and fun, and we love evening hours in the park, so take advantage of those. Another tip that we like to use when we're traveling to Disney in the summer is to travel light as much as you can. You might actually be surprised that if you're wearing a backpack or you have something against your back or a bag or whatever, that might make you sweat quite a bit. So just be mindful of that. Make sure that you have something that's breathable. I still do wear like a pretty good backpack, but I make sure that it like doesn't press up against my back because you're just going to get all sweaty and gross. So I really like one that has like the waist strap. And sometimes if it's touching my back and it's just too hot, I'll use the waist, the strap that goes around the waist. And that really helps to kind of like get the pressure off my back and kind of takes the weight off my shoulders. And I don't carry a lot of heavy things, but like I said, those double-walled water bottles, and I'm carrying them usually for kids too. So that can get a little heavy. So just be mindful of that. Try not to take anything you don't really need. You're not going to need jackets and stuff. So you don't need to carry any of that stuff in the summertime. Just make sure you have your umbrella, your rain gear. But water bottles, umbrellas, that can add up a little bit. So be aware of that and try to just get rid of everything else that you don't need to carry in your bag, because the more you carry, the hotter and sweatier and more uncomfortable you are going to be. Okay, our final big tip, and this one should seem pretty obvious, is to stay hydrated and be extra careful about drinking alcoholic beverages. Obviously, some people love to come to Disney and have some really delicious drinks. Disney has a lot of wonderful bars and lounges and really fun drinks. People love to do monorail pub crawls. They love to drink around the world in Epcot. But you've got to be extra careful about any alcohol consumption if you are in really, really hot conditions. That can really wipe you out quickly, and you need to work extra hard to stay hydrated. So just be really mindful of that. Make sure somebody in your party is being responsible and kind of monitoring everybody else in the party as well. If you are a parent or the planner or the responsible adult in the group, you're going to want to really be mindful of everybody else's health and hydration and, the condition of their feet. All of those things. If you're a parent, check your kids' feet, see how they're doing, and really, it's not worth pushing through somebody getting sick or feeling bad on the trip just to squeeze in one more ride or one more attraction or one more character meet. So you have to really balance those things out carefully. You want to have a great trip that's fun for everyone. And if you're comfortable, you're going to have more fun. Leave a comment below and let me know what your favorite strategies are for staying cool in the parks in the summer. And you might even have strategies for Disneyland because it can get quite hot there as well. A lot of these strategies are going to work for either location because they are both warm climates. So I want to hear from you. What are your favorite tips? What did I forget? What did I leave out that you always do to stay cool in Disney parks? Remember to check out our website at themagicandthemusic.com. You can also check us out over on Patreon. If you want to get the most out of your next Disney vacation or your DVC membership, check out this playlist right over here. We also think you're going to love this video right over here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Bye.